A few years ago, I walked into a luxury store just to have a look. I had just gotten my paycheck and wasn't planning on buying anything. I just wanted to feel the vibe. At the entrance, the sales assistant gave me that look, the kind you recognize from miles away, the one that scans your clothes, your demeanor, your presence. I felt invisible. I took a quick lap, touched a bag that cost 3 times my bank balance, and walked out. On the sidewalk, I stopped, took a breath, and realized what kept me from staying wasn't the price. It was my identity, that inner feeling that the place wasn't for me. That day, I understood something that changed my life, and could change yours. Wealth doesn't start with your bank statement. It starts with how you see yourself. Most people wait to get rich so they can finally feel confident, secure, valued. But the real order is different. You need to access that state before the money arrives. Because it's that internal posture that attracts, sustains, and multiplies wealth, not the other way around. Today, you'll understand why wealth is an internal state, and how you can activate that code now, with what you have, where you are, just as you are. Do you already live like someone wealthy? Or do you still think like someone just trying to survive? Before I had financial freedom, I was literally counting change. I planned every trip to the grocery store. I avoided even looking at window displays. But the worst part wasn't my credit card limit. It was the limit in my head. Everything involving money came with tension. That's way too expensive. I can't even think about that right now. When I have money, then I'll do that thing I believed I needed to have before I could be. Have security to feel confident. Have money to feel worthy. Have a better life to feel deserving. But that equation was flipped. It was only when I started to change how I saw myself, even with a tight bank account, that things began to shift. And I'm not talking about magical thinking or visualize and it will come. Now I'm talking about conscious behavior born from the right identity. True wealth begins with questions almost no one asks. How do you walk down the street? How do you show up in conversations? How do you react when someone compliments you? How do you handle small financial decisions? Are you living like someone who chooses, or like someone who's always adapting? The turning point comes when you stop moving through life with shame, fear, or a sense of inferiority, and start acting with the dignity of someone who knows their worth, even before life rewards that financially. I remember one small change that made a big difference. I started treating my time like a high-value asset. I organized my routine, cut down on meaningless conversations, and became intentional about what I consumed. The result? My focus improved. My energy went up. My results came faster. Scarcity mindset is loud, anxious, distracted. Abundance mindset is quiet, selective, clear. You don't need to wait until you earn more to start acting differently. You just need to stop acting like someone who's always asking for permission to exist. Wealth isn't a fixed number in your account. It's a way of positioning yourself, of moving, of deciding. When you tap into that frequency, the world responds with opportunities that didn't even notice you before. Does your environment reflect your identity or your inner chaos? For a long time, my room looked like a war zone. Clothes thrown over the chair, stuffed drawers, a pile of papers I'd organize someday. On the surface, it was just mess. But looking closer, it said a lot about how I felt inside. Confusion, disorder, lack of control. Here's a truth no one spells out. Disorganized spaces don't support prosperity. Because prosperity requires clarity. And clarity doesn't grow in chaos. It was only when I understood this that I began seeing my space with new eyes. It didn't matter if I lived in a small rented apartment with secondhand furniture. What mattered was, does this place remind me of who I want to become, or of who I'm trying to leave behind? Inner wealth isn't about showing off. It's about intentionality. It's about carefully choosing even the small things. The mug you use for your coffee, your phone's wallpaper, the objects visible on your desk, what you see first thing in the morning. If you live surrounded by clutter, excess, and stuff that doesn't align with your goals, your brain goes into survival mode. It focuses on the urgent, the distractions, the autopilot. The wealthy woman, even before she has millions, organizes what she has with purpose. She creates an environment that supports focus, sparks good ideas, and reinforces the identity she's building. When I turned a corner of my living room into a focus zone, with a clean desk, a candle, a plant, and a notebook, something simple happened. I stopped working, slouched on the couch, and started writing like someone who knew where she was headed. And the difference? It was everything. Because your environment doesn't just shape your behavior. It speaks to your mind all the time. If you want to activate your wealth now, look around. And ask yourself, is this space aligned with the life I say I want? If it's not, start small. Tidy a drawer. Remove what weighs you down. Decorate with what lifts you up. Don't wait for the dream house. Make the most of what you have. Because sometimes, a simple shift in your space makes room for a version of you that's been suffocating. Wealth is internal order reflected externally. And the reverse is true too. Wealth starts with how you speak, to the world, and to yourself. Have you noticed the phrases you repeat without thinking? That's too expensive. I'm terrible with numbers. Or I have no luck. In my reality, that's impossible. Seems harmless, right? Just venting. But those phrases, repeated daily, become a kind of command. A mental script your brain follows faithfully, even if you say you want to change your life. It was only when I started paying attention to what I was saying that I understood why I kept getting stuck. Even when I earned more, I kept sabotaging myself, spending it all, turning down opportunities, avoiding my bank account. Why? Because deep down, I still described myself as someone who didn't know how to handle money. And the truth is simple and harsh. You will never rise above the image you hold of yourself. The wealthy woman chooses her words with intention, not because she's trying to fake something, but because she knows every identity begins with language. She doesn't say, I can't. She says, this isn't a priority right now. She doesn't say, I'm not capable. She says, I'm still learning. She doesn't say, this is too much for me. She asks, how can I become someone who's ready for this? That subtle shift transforms decisions, behaviors, and even what you attract. Because someone who speaks with awareness naturally begins to act with more discernment. Once, during a negotiation, I almost accepted less than I deserved. But before replying, I took a breath and said, this project requires a strategic delivery, and the compensation needs to reflect that. Let's adjust. In the moment, I was shaking. But the response was positive. Not only did I close the deal, but I earned respect. Even the other side could feel the change in posture. The way you speak to yourself in small moments either builds or erodes your self-confidence. And without self-confidence, there is no stable prosperity, only misdirected effort. Want to activate your inner wealth today? Pay attention to the things you repeat about yourself. Replace what diminishes you with words that put you in command. You don't have to pretend you're rich. But you do need to stop speaking like someone who's never going to make it. Because words create territory. And the wealthy woman builds hers first in her mind, then in the world. Those with a wealth mindset don't wait for motivation. They act with intention. For a long time, I only did things when I felt excited. I'd organize my finances on a burst of inspiration, read about investing during a random wave of motivation, then drop everything as soon as life got busy. My financial life was one endless restart. Always on day one, always with beautiful plans and zero consistency. And the most dangerous part? I thought the problem was a lack of discipline. But what I was really missing was clarity of intention. Here's a tough and simple truth. The wealthy woman doesn't rely on excitement. She runs on structure. She knows she won't wake up every day thrilled to budget, invest, or study, but she does it anyway. Because she knows wealth isn't built on fleeting emotion, but on the stability of habit. It's not about being perfect. It's about being committed. She has rituals, routines, boundaries. She decides how much she spends, where she invests, what she consumes, and doesn't self-sabotage on impulse. She learns to respect her own plans like she would a contract with someone else. I remember when I decided to create my finance day each week. Every Friday, for 1 hour, I reviewed my expenses, adjusted my goals, and checked my investments. In the beginning, it felt like a chore. But after a few weeks, it became an anchor. For the first time, I felt like I was in control of my money, not just reacting to it. That kind of structure changes everything. Because it takes you out of the role of life's victim and puts you in the role of the author. And you know what comes with that? Self-confidence, clarity, results. Scarcity mindset lives in improvisation. Wealth mindset lives in conscious decision. Do you want to live better, grow, prosper? Then stop waiting for the right moment, the new year, the when I have time, and start building rituals that support the life you say you want. The wealthy woman doesn't need to be at the top to act seriously. She acts seriously, and that's why she reaches the top. Intentional action is what separates dreamers from doers. You can only sustain what you believe you deserve. One of the strangest experiences of my life was the first time I received a large sum of money. It wasn't an inheritance. It was the result of a well-executed project, months of dedication. The deposit hit, and my whole body froze. In the following days, I started to feel strange, restless, insecure, guilty. I found myself spending without thinking, offering things no one had asked for, buying gifts to justify an internal discomfort I couldn't understand, until the money was gone. And what was left was the question, why did something I worked so hard to earn disappear so fast? The answer is uncomfortable but freeing. I didn't know how to handle the idea that I deserved it. Simple as that. There's a part of us, shaped by experiences, traumas, family stories, that believes having too much is wrong. Or that it's not for people like us. Or that if something really good happens, something bad must follow. That's the trap of unworthiness. And it silently destroys wealth, because it makes you reject opportunities, sabotage your wins, and regress every time something starts to go right. The wealthy woman, before she achieves, must do the inner work. Accept that she is worthy. Worthy of earning well, living well, being treated well, feeling secure, having freedom. And not because she's better than anyone else, but because she's committed to her own evolution. She doesn't apologize for prospering. She doesn't carry guilt for wanting more. And most importantly, she learns to sustain what she builds. This runs deeper than it seems. Some people know how to make money but don't know how to be rich, because deep down, they still see themselves as someone who has to work hard for very little. Some people are always gaining and losing, because they unconsciously repeat the emotional pattern of someone who believes you can't have it all. Want to start changing that? Watch how you react when something good happens. Do you receive a compliment and downplay it? Close a deal and feel guilty? Have a good month and immediately think something bad is coming? Those are signs you're still driving with the handbrake on. The woman who activates her inner wealth learns to expand her own container. She prepares emotionally to receive and to maintain. Because it's not enough to achieve, you need to sustain. And no one sustains what they believe they don't deserve. Wealth isn't a reward someone gives you. It's a code you activate from the inside out. You can spend your whole life waiting for the perfect scenario, the right salary, the ideal client, the partner who understands your dreams. Or you can realize, today, that all of that begins when you decide to operate on a new frequency. And that decision doesn't depend on money. It depends on identity, on clarity, on posture. You activate your wealth when you stop downplaying yourself in casual conversations, organize your space like someone who respects herself, are mindful of what you consume, think, and repeat, act with structure even when no one's watching, and most of all, see yourself as someone who deserves to grow, without guilt. The life you want won't show up out of nowhere. It will appear as a response to how you show up every day. And if this video gave you that spark, don't shelve it for later. Pick one action you can change today, and drop it in the comments. What habit or mindset are you going to start practicing now? If you want more content that speaks to you clearly, directly, and without fluff, you already know what to do. I'll see you in the next video. Wealth is presence, and you've just moved closer to yours.